Welcome to the Work the System podcast, where we help entrepreneurs make more and work less using systems. I'm your host, Josh Fonger. And today we have a special guest. We have Adam Lundquist, who's going to talk to us about the power of digital marketing and 5 ways your business can acquire new clients online. Adam is the founder of digital marketing agency Nerds Do It Better, where he takes his media knowledge to even greater heights, delivering consistent and cost-effective paid search campaigns for companies around the world. He and his team excel at putting their client's brand in front of the right eyes at the right time with the right message on the right device. All right, welcome to the show, Adam.
Thanks. It's nice to virtually be here.
Right, all the way across the world here. Me in Arizona, and you in London. Well, why don't I start off by asking you a really open-ended question, so you can give us the backstory. So, how did you get into this line of business? What brought you here?
Yeah, so I kind of got into it in a roundabout way. Growing up, I had always wanted to be a shock jock, kind of like Howard Stern. Mm-hmm. For your younger viewers who have no idea who that is, he was a big radio guy, and for those who are younger, also radio is something people used to listen to. So growing up in Boston, that was kind of the big thing, was you had radio and you had sports stars. So growing up, kind of what I always wanted to do. So I got out of college or out of high school, and I moved across the country to California, to Santa Barbara specifically. And I ended up getting a job in the radio. I just kept applying and eventually became an intern there. And it was a local independent station. And this was around 2008-ish. And at the time, YouTube was just starting. And our manager, or the owner of the station actually, was like, hey, we don't want to do things on the internet. We don't think the internet's a very savory place. And I was like, well, then I'm definitely going to do things on the internet. So the LA Clippers used to come and practice at Santa Barbara City College. So I went and did an interview with this guy, Sam Cassell, who was a basketball player who kind of looked like an alien. And basically just asked him a bunch of dumb questions about looking like an alien. And I was like, all right, well, that's it. I'm going to be famous. So I posted it on YouTube, and not surprisingly, nothing happened, because people think things go viral magically, but they certainly do not go viral magically. Mm-hmm. So I was 25-ish at the time, and I was like, all right, it's time to do something with my life. So I had this great video, or what I thought was a great video, and I started trying to promote it. I didn't really know how to promote things. Like, I knew if I was on the air and people thought I was funny, they might tell their friend, or they might not. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they would. But online, I didn't really know what to do. So I started emailing people who had sites that I looked up to. Barstool Sports was one of them, I remember. And there were a couple other ones. I started emailing people and then noticing what got people's attention and what got them to respond to my email to put the video up on their site and what didn't. And I kind of like unintentionally started to learn how to split test. So I'd say, oh, weird, like this headline worked and this headline didn't. And it also kind of was one of the first things that got me into Google Sheets and Excel, because I could track it and see what was happening. And eventually you hit kind of like a tipping point. I think Malcolm Gladwell called it. And the video kind of got a life of its own. It got, I think the big tipping point was Sports Illustrated put as the number 6 or 7 viral video of all time. So that made it go like explode. So it got on Best Damn Sports Show. It was on, what else was it on? It was on Best Week Ever, all this stuff. It got really big, really big for me, I guess. And I started seeing like, well, what's the difference between traditional media and online media? And traditional media, like radio, I had a radio show, I was writing for a newspaper, and I was teaching a course. So like pretty much 3 jobs that they were going out the window at the turn of the millennium. Mm-hmm. And, none of them paid particularly well. Like you think you're like kind of famous on the radio, but it was like not a lot of money. You're basically getting paid in beer. But whereas when I got put on those media placements, you did get paid a pretty good amount of money. And I started seeing the difference between what traditional media could do and what new media could do. And tracking too was a big thing. Like, it was really fun to see the views go up. And in traditional media like radio, they don't really know how many people listen to it. They have something called Arbitron, which measures it, which is actually just someone basically calls in the smaller markets, which Santa Barbara was. They call people who have a landline, which, come on, that's pretty unlikely, and say, hey, will you fill out a diary of what you listen to? So that's like a literal diary. So So I started seeing the difference, and then eventually, actually on Friday the 13th, 10 years ago, we did a whole show about bad luck things, right? Like, like walking under a ladder, having a cat go in front of you and all stuff. And then we got fired that day because, ironically, because they said, we're paying you too much money, which was right, because we were making at least $12 an hour at that point. So I moved to Romania with who is now my wife. And I came back and went back to school for a little bit. And the school I went to, you didn't need to be on campus to submit your thesis for a master's degree. And then I got hired at a startup in San Diego, a small little startup. There were maybe 5 of us when I got hired. And we became the second fastest growing startup in San Diego, second fastest growing privately held company in San Diego. And I really learned much more about marketing there. We helped our biggest client. They were making about 20,000 in revenue a month, and we took them to over $1 million a month on just paid search alone in revenue. And I really learned a lot about tracking, a lot about scaling, and really a lot about systems, mainly because obviously I'm a huge fan of systems as well. And from there, I started my own company, Nerds Do It Better. We started in Philadelphia, but we've been to Santa Barbara. Now I'm based out of London, but if there are any tax people listening, the company is definitely not based out of London. That is for sure.
Yeah, we should put that in there. Well, that's it's like a very normal story to be in Romania and then London, and then wow, you jumped around a bit. So what has changed in digital marketing? I'm always curious about this, from when you first got into it and you were doing paid search. I think that's your main thing is paid search, compared to now. Like what are some things that have changed? And then you can probably guess the next question is going to be, where do you see it going?
Yeah, so some of the biggest things that I've seen change are the speed. So when I was starting it, you really weren't tracking things like phone calls or messaging. And these are things people really do want and care about. Like a lot of my clients are lawyers, doctors, those kind of things. And yeah, they do have forms. You can fill out a form, but people really want to call. They want that instant connection with someone, and that's a real big thing. Another thing that has changed, of course, is Facebook. So when I started this, you basically had Google to advertise on, essentially. And now there's a lot more networks. You have Facebook, you have Bing, theoretically, although I hardly ever use Bing. LinkedIn's actually been pretty good lately. I mean, I wouldn't have even said this maybe a year ago, but lately it's been pretty good with InMail and that kind of thing. You have Taboola. Like, there's all sorts of different methods you can take. You're not stuck with just Google. And even within Google, you're not stuck on just the search ads. You can also do display ads. And just as a tip, because I'd at least like this to be somewhat valuable to people, the biggest way to make those kind of things work is to think about the difference of your offer. So if you're thinking about Facebook, I would say don't go for an immediate consultation. First, give them like an ebook or something interesting along those lines, and then move to the offer as they go through your funnel. Because if someone's searching for your solution, they're searching for it, they want it right now. That's the kind of thing you give a consultation to. If they're not, that's the kind of thing you give an ebook to. Or one of the things that I've been seeing a lot now that's been really, really moving the needle is interactive, what they're called lead magnets, when you give someone something for their email. So I have a bunch of hormonal therapy doctors, and it's much more interesting for someone to get a quiz and see, hey, where do they fall on kind of a hormonal therapy scale as far as like if it's affected them or not, rather than just like an ebook that's like, hey, 10 ways to change your hormones. So these kind of instant feedback mechanisms really make a huge difference. And they make a huge difference for the marketer too. So as a marketer, if you had someone fill out, I don't know, let's just stick with the hormonal therapy quiz. And one of the questions is, do you have trouble sleeping at night? Which can be an indicator of hormonal imbalance. I'm not a doctor, but I know this from talking to them. You might send them emails that help them fix that issue. So these kind of interactive quizzes, or assessments, as you might call them, really make a huge difference.
So this is interesting. I want to explore this a bit, since you're a pro at this. So how can you tell what is the best way to, consider a lead gen person, to whether you should go with a quiz, a book, a direct to consultation, a ebook, a PDF that has a one-page summary? Like what is the, and because you mentioned that in some cases you want to kind of walk them through a self-discovery process, and other ones they have a headache and they want to solve the headache now, and so maybe it's just quick to say, like, is there a way to determine that?
Yeah, it's about matching the network and the offer. So that's where
Okay.
you'll actually see the biggest difference. You might read all these stories like Amazon changed the button color and they got 1 million more clicks. Yeah, they're Amazon. You're not Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So on Google Search Network, which is
Mm-hmm.
someone types it in. So say for my service, they're typing in paid search marketing.
Mm-hmm.
There, I would offer a consultation. They're immediately looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
On something like Facebook, that platform is the kind of place where you would start with an ebook or a interactive offer. Now,
Mm-hmm.
which one? That's something you're just going to want to test to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, what I'm seeing as a general rule is that interactive offers do better than ebooks, but it's not 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it logically, it makes sense with almost anything you do. If you're, I don't know, if you're taking your car to a mechanic, would you rather they come in like, hey, let's test out the car and see what's wrong, or they just give you a sheet that was like, here are 10 things that could be wrong? Like, you want that immediate feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And then even on that, so let's say you're doing a quiz, right? You give that feedback. Why not put the feedback in a video, which I see works really well, and then at the bottom have that call to the consultation. I actually have an article coming about this in a search engine journal in about a week or two, that if you give these things micro commitments, they're called, or
Mm-hmm.
micro conversions,
Mm-hmm.
someone's more likely to fill out your core offer, which we'll call that, if they've taken the little steps previous. It's the same as samples at Trader Joe's, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're more likely to buy something if you've had a sample of it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this is about human psychology. But I mean, the answer to your question is it really depends on the network is what I would match with your offer.
Okay. The network meaning the medium that you choose, or the network
Yes.
meaning your clientele.
No, I mean the medium. So
Okay.
you can have an ebook that just crushes it on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
and does terrible on Google search
Mm-hmm.
because you have to match the medium with the offer.
Mm-hmm. So for our audience, I would say a chunk of maybe 5-10% that are involved in the digital marketing arena, but everyone else is probably not going to do this themselves. So in their case, as the business owner, let's just say they own a chiropractic office, or they own an insurance agency, or whatever that might be. How do they steer or drive the strategy for the marketers that they have underneath them, or should they even bother and just let someone else do it?
I mean, obviously the best solution is just to hire me. But let's say let's say you're a
Second best
crazy
solution.
person. Yeah, let's say you're a crazy person who doesn't do that. You could. Okay, so if we take a step back, what you want to do is match everything to your end business result. Like, not from a digital standpoint, not from a network standpoint, but from a global standpoint. It doesn't matter how many leads you get if none of them become customers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I try to match it 1-to-1 actually, based on I'm a big fan of Google Sheets. So I actually have, anytime a lead comes in, it pulls into Google Sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And then my clients will put whether it's a good or bad lead. So that's a great start.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they can, they'll tell me if they become a client or not. Now, for some, I don't really go all the way. Like, for lawyers, I'm not going to be like, well, did they do it? But
Mm-hmm.
like for, as an example, I have a long distance medical transportation company.
Mm-hmm.
And I know if they're a good or bad client, their alpha is whether they're over 300 miles, because long distance medical.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the first thing you want to do is see, do the leads that you're getting, do they become customers?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to think of this from a business standpoint. So one of the things my company does is strategy. So if the leads are good and they're not becoming customers, the question is, what are your sales calls like? What is it
Mm-hmm.
you're doing for follow-up? Because the internet isn't magic. It's awesome and it scales and it does all sorts of things, but one thing it is not is magic. So
Mm-hmm.
when anyone tells you, hey, there's this thing that always works, it doesn't always work.
Mm-hmm.
But there are things that work generally, and there are things that you need to track as well. So if you get a lead, what I like for my clients generally, if they're like if they can do this, which some can't, like bankruptcy lawyers shouldn't do this, but is to follow up 4 times before they consider it a dead lead.
Mm-hmm.
So follow-up is going to be key as well. So what these people are essentially doing is raising their hand and saying, yes, I'm interested.
Mhm.
But you also need to say, all right, well, we know that they're interested. How can we continue the conversation with them? In the case of a consultation, you just have the consultation, but you frame it appropriately so it's not just a horrible sales call that nobody wants to be on.
Mhm.
You know, you got to listen to them, almost like an interactive quiz, which is such a weird way to think about a person. But I know when I do my sales calls, I always say, all right, well, you know, what is it? What are the issues you're having? Because
Mhm.
if they just got online and I said, hey, you need Facebook, like, okay, well, that's ridiculous. You don't
Mhm.
know anything about me.
Mhm.
But, you know, and they will be, my sales calls are based on what they tell me.
Mhm.
And then the same thing should go for anything you do. Like, you have to listen before you can just tell them that you know the solution.
Mhm.
So a lot of this is going to be how you communicate with your clients after. Emails are a good way to do it, a really good way, actually. But you don't want to blast them with stupid emails that they don't want to read.
Mhm.
Because think of it like, think of an email almost as a one-to-one. It's weird because it's a mass communication, but it's also one-to-one.
Mhm.
So it's not something that you, if your friends would be, if you'd be embarrassed to show your friends your email, then it's a bad email.
Okay.
And people care about what's in it for them. So I have some of my bigger clients are more corporate. This happens less with the smaller ones, but
Mhm.
you know, don't send out emails like, hey, it's Hawaiian shirt Friday here. It's like,
Mhm.
no one cares.
Mhm.
Nobody cares. You know, the question anyone reads in an email is like, what's in it for me? And that's a
Mhm.
fine question for them to ask because we all get bombarded with emails. I mean, me
Mhm.
included, and I hate it. So unless you are writing emails that directly help me in any way, like giving someone information's help, making someone laugh is help, like there's all sorts of things. But if it's just some sort of garbage emails full of sales, like you're never going to get that sale.
So what do you think, and you've kind of alluded to the number of mediums that are growing, what do you think the future is going to be like for digital marketers? Because I think I read in a recent article that, I'm going to quote this wrong, that most people now are a part of like 5 social media networks, but within a couple of years, they're expecting to be like 15 social media networks. And so as people fracture their time amongst more networks, what is going to be the best way to strategize how to get a hold of them? Because it's hard to be an expert in 15 different mediums.
Well, yeah, it is. It is hard. I say it like I'm an expert in 15 mediums. Yes, believe me, I know how hard it is. But what works for one will work for others. So anything will work if
Mhm.
you stick with it enough and think about it through enough.
Mhm.
And what works on Facebook generally works on the Google Display Network
Mhm.
and a little bit on Twitter as well.
Mhm.
So it's again about just matching the medium with the offer.
Mhm.
But what I would say the biggest thing that most people are going to need to think about is speed.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm working on this myself right now. I don't have it perfect either. But things like chatbots, uh, or actual live chat, which people would prefer, me included. I mean, I hate those chatbots. Chatbots that suck are like, you ever call a bank and they're like, press 1 to transfer to a foreign exchange. And you're like, can
Mm.
I just talk to a person? Is it
Yeah.
too much to ask talk to a person? But having someone actually there to answer questions, and like, I don't get a cut of this company. I'm just going to tell you because I use them and I like them. There's a company called Drift. I think does a really good job of
Uh-huh.
explaining it. I just read their book. I think it's called like Conversational Marketing. And again, like I'm happy to recommend a company. I don't get a cut of any of them,
Uh-huh.
but I think that they do a good job of explaining it. It's kind of like how Netflix crushed Blockbuster, right? Like we
Mhm.
all, man, I'm starting to sound so old, radio, Blockbuster. But like Blockbuster is a place you used to go to rent a video.
Mhm.
And Netflix is like, it's here now. And I think
Mhm.
people, even when I think about sales calls, are going to just want the answer now. They're not going to want to take their time. They're not going to want to get on the phone. Like they're just not going to want that. I think in the future, maybe even now. I mean, it still works, and it works well, especially for the higher ticket items. Like you're not gonna pick a lawyer off a Facebook chat, but
Mhm.
you might pick something smaller.
Mhm.
And I think speed is going to be a huge issue because I actually see it myself. Like because I have a lot of vendors that I work with,
Mhm.
and I'm always trying out new stuff. And I'll say, all right, I'll do a consultation. And if I don't get an email back within like say 10 minutes, they're basically dead to me. Like I'm
Wow.
just not interested. Or if they do send me something in say 2 days, I'm like, I don't remember filling this out. This is so annoying. Who are you? So I think speed is a huge thing. I know I'm kind of self-promoting my stuff here, but I have an article on PPC Hero about it
Uh-huh.
that shows you step by step some ways to implement this. But they're basically like, think about using chat, think about instant phone calls if you can take them, and they're hard. Like it's hard for me because I'm in London. I have a bunch of US clients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, some things you can do that will help, say, overcome objections
Mm-hmm.
quickly are to include an FAQ section.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not so much speed to implementation, but speed to overcoming objections, because nobody's going to download something or buy something if they still have concerns. So
Mm-hmm.
an FAQ section is just basically overcoming concerns, really. So you'll see the questions like, but do I get a refund? You know, it's that kind of thing. But yeah, speed is going to be the key. And even page load speed makes a tremendous difference in if people stick around.
Hmm. So, not to get too technical, what would be the big things that people are doing terribly wrong that you see every time? So things that really are slow, or it kind of slows the momentum from getting the lead to closing it. What do people consistently screw up on?
Emailing too late.
Too late. Okay, so lead comes in and then they wait a day and they email them and the people are like, they're already gone.
I even say try not to wait an hour. Like
Mm-hmm.
even if your email just says, hey, thanks, we received this, which is like not great, it's still better than nothing and lets them know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sending it out like day after, people are going to forget about you. And a good tip that I actually learned the hard way is so the way my funnels generally work is you download something and then you can book a sales call. It's generally how it works. It's kind of like the boiling frog thing that I was talking about. I was letting people book sales calls a week or two out, and then would call them a week or two later, and they'd be like, "Who the hell are you?"
Yep.
I'd be like, "Oh, okay." So I even condensed that. It's a 3-day booking period, no matter what.
Hmm.
And yeah, if you have a good campaign, which mine generally are, they'll book up. Okay, but I'll take that rather than say calling people in a week and having them forget who you are.
Hmm. Okay, well, that's really good advice. So if a lead comes in, they have a problem, they want to solve it, and it better be quick, or they're going to find someone else who can solve it quicker.
Yeah, a lot of them really are just shopping around,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they're on Facebook or on AdWords. And so, like, I have a lot of divorce lawyers. They may just be like, "How much are you? How much are you? How much are you?" And you could do things called negative keywords. So I always negative out free or cheap. So if those are there, they don't show.
Mm-hmm.
But people okay, so besides the speed of chats,
Mm-hmm.
it's really a good way to stay in contact with someone as well. So, like I have like realtors is another pretty good example.
Mm-hmm.
If you've started talking to a realtor on a chat, it's just so much easier to like pick up the phone and be like, hey, I don't know, did you have any houses that open that are 3-bedroom or whatever it is? Rather than even the mental hurdle doesn't seem like it's bigger, but it actually is, than opening up your email and being like, hello, hope you're having a fine day. Anything you can do to lower the bar and make it easier is, once they're in, is going to be really beneficial. Now, I say that once they're in because there's something called a Facebook lead ad, which is if you click a button, say you have an MP3 or whatever, they click a button and you never leave Facebook, but it'll automatically pop up and it's like, do you want this MP3 or do you want this whatever? And you never leave. That's so easy that people sign up and then they never open the email. And I found just statistically, they don't end up being great leads because you have to have some sort of friction or they really don't care about it. Yeah, you need a little bit of friction.
Okay, that's interesting. So there's the you want it to be smooth, frictionless, but at the same time, if there's no friction, they didn't really actively engage enough to know what they're even searching for or buying or looking at.
Yeah, I mean, the way most funnels work is you provide something of value, they read it, and then there's a great book called Principles of Influence, and they talk about the law of reciprocity. Like, if I bought you a coffee, you'd be like basically like pathologically want to buy me one back. It's just the way people work. It's their human nature. They actually think it's where economies come from. And the way funnels are supposed to work and generally do is you give me your email or whatever it is, and I give you something valuable. You read it, and you feel so much value from it that you then take the next step. The way it kind of breaks on the lead ads is that you give me your email, I give you something I think is valuable, and you never read it, and then you just get a whole bunch of emails that are like, "Have you read this jazzy book?" And like, no, no one's read it.
So what about, so how does video play into this? Because obviously that's continued to grow. Is it better for someone, instead of giving an ebook, to have a quick 2-minute video because most people are willing to watch a 2-minute video? Is that a better way to go to get value quicker?
I mean, video is good if it's a good video, right? So these are my tips for video.
Uh-huh.
One, always start out with your best point. People like, I'm going to save the best point for the end. No one's going to watch to the end. This is something I learned in radio. It's called like the inverted pyramid. Oh, my old boss would have loved to hear me say that. He was always like, "You're not funny." But that is what it's called. It's called the inverted pyramid. So you always start with your best point first. Whatever it is, your funniest thing, your biggest spot, always first. Other thing, always caption your videos. Most people are going to be watching on mobile with the sound off. I would say don't produce them too slickly. That's kind of like I'm not as passionate about that. But the ones that are really overproduced, they're just like, they don't do too much for anyone. So just like basic videos that are basically on your iPhone or Android or whatever, those work really well.
So because you've been involved in some viral media, any tips for those who do want to get their video out there in a viral way so it doesn't cost so much, to use as much paid, but actually just kind of grows on its own?
Yeah, just interview the LA Clippers. Shouldn't be a problem, right?
Okay. Easy
That
as
got me
that.
banned from the Staples Center, you know. And then I interviewed the Lakers, and that was even worse. But that one I didn't take a video of.
And that got you so banned because you were too offensive, or just because you were taking advantage of the medium?
Oh, it's just too offensive. I mean, that was like, it was a little before Ali G, but it was kind of the same kind of shtick. But
Okay.
so like that's something to think about too. I've had clients. I'm thinking of one specifically who does. It was like a Groupon for braces.
Uh-huh.
So like which is actually a pretty good business model. But the idea was that if you had a bunch of people opt in for this, they would buy as a group, they would get a discount on braces. And he made a video about it. He's like, "Can you make this video go viral? Like, there's no button I can press that are going to make people be like, braces, huh? I'm definitely going to check that out."
Yeah.
And like, I don't actually know how to make a viral video except to say, make it interesting and then promote it. Like, but promote it in a way that you're hitting influencers. I mean, which is what I did. You know, I like, not to get too in the weeds of it, but I would basically research like, all right, well, who's in charge of the blog at Sports Illustrated? Who's in charge of the blog at, or whatever, you know, whatever all those were. It's kind of the same thing I do generally when I do writing. Like, I look for who has the bigger blogs, like I said, PPC Hero, and then I write to them and I say, "Hey, look, this is what I think would be good for your audience," because I do always try and think about it from the audience standpoint. So anytime it's about me, it's just like the thing with email. Like, it's not that interesting. Like, I'm kind of interesting, but I'm not as interesting to you as you are to you.
Right. So what's interesting to me is that you're all about this lead gen and growth, but you're still doing blog posts into these various, I guess, blogs. So how does that play into your strategy? I'm curious.
Yeah, so the way blogs work, or guest blogs work, is that they build your credentials. So when I started this, you know, it's just like a guy. I mean, I'm still just a guy, but you know, you'd be like, "Hey, you know, do you want to work with me?" And they'd be like, "Who the hell are you?"
Yep.
So now you can say, it's for the sales cycle. You say, you know, "We've been featured on this, and this." And a lot of times before I have a sales call, I'll say, "Hey, can you read this so our call could be more productive?" So what that does is two things. One, it shows you're a thought leader. And two, it gets them on the same page, because an educated client is almost always going to be better. It really, like, I say the internet isn't magic, like as a joke a little bit, but really because I think Google has done kind of a disservice and make it seem like every click's 10 cents, everyone's going to buy, and everything you do is going to go viral. Man, that's not the case. The lawyers are about 40 to 60 bucks a click. It's really expensive. And everyone's not going to buy. You're going to get some bad leads. And even Google, your keywords aren't even real. So you might have a keyword that says, I don't know, DUI lawyer, just because we're sticking with that. That's not necessarily what someone types in. A keyword isn't a search query. Search query is what someone types in. So a lot of times when I take over accounts, someone's like, "Well, look, my keywords they're solid. Look, I have DUI lawyer, I'm a DUI lawyer." And when I see what people are searching, it might be, "What's a good show about lawyers?" which is obviously a terrible search query for it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, it's like a kind of like a don't even know how to describe it. It's like an ostrich head sticking out of the sand,
Uh-huh.
where like what you see isn't necessarily what you get. You have to really get deep in the
Hmm.
data. And the best ways that I've seen are, and I don't get it kind of easy, although I wish I did, is Google Sheets.
Uh-huh.
So I use something called Supermetrics, which
Uh-huh.
pulls in automatically it pulls in anything you want, but I use it to pull in search queries. And then I match the search query with the lead because I have leads coming in from something called Unbounce,
Mm-hmm.
which is a landing page platform.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see, all right, what's good and what isn't good. And you can tell, if you have the time, you can tell one-to-one. So with lawyers, it's not such a big deal. But with my B2B clients, we can say, all right, well, we got this person. What's their LinkedIn? Can we reach out to them again? So if you can, it's good to go person-to-person marketing. Sometimes you get a little too big for that, but it's kind of one of those good problems to have. If you're too big for that, then great. Well, what am I going to tell you? That's a good problem.
Well, Adam, this is a ton of information, which is really good. Hopefully it's not overwhelming the audience that is not involved in digital marketing, but what it probably does remind them is they probably need to find a pro to do this for them, because the game is getting more complicated, it's getting more difficult, more competitive, and more mediums. And if you don't nail it right, you can be throwing a lot of money away and not even know it if you're not tracking it properly. That's kind of the big theme I'm getting here. Well, so due to time, what's one question I didn't ask you, Adam, that I should have asked you during this interview?
Sure. I'd say the most important question is, can you get a free consultation on my site, nerdsdoitbetter.com? And I'm glad you brought that up. The answer is probably, but if you're a good fit, we'll give you the free consultation. No, but the real answer to that question, what's the question you should have asked?
Yeah.
I think you asked a bunch of fine questions. I guess a good question that people always ask is, will this work for me? Or I've tried this before and it doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, an objection that I get on sales calls. And that's fair. You might have tried this before and it didn't work, but that's probably because you weren't doing it right. Like, as I was talking about with the search queries and the keywords, there's a lot of things to it that seem one way and are kind of another because of the information networks actually give you versus what surfaces. And I would say if you are interested in it, it really is worth learning about, because really your business is sales. Like, no matter what you actually manufacture or do, you can have the best product in the world, but if you can't sell it, you suck. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. So some good resources, and I do write for some of them, but I think that they're actually really good resources, are PPC Hero is a really good one. Conversion Excel is a really good one. Search Engine Journal I like quite a bit. And just stay on top of the learning a bit and think about it from a business perspective. I guess a good thing to think about is, what would I do in the real world and how can I bring them to digital? You would never run out in the street to someone and say, hey, buy this now. You'd say, hey, can I help you? What do you need? Like a reasonable person to another reasonable person.
Perfect. Well, good. Well, so where can people find out more about what you do, Adam, and to possibly, if they qualify, get in that free consultation?
Yeah, well, let me say that about it. If you don't get the free consultation, it doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means it's not a great fit, which is fine. I would still send you some resources. And that happens from time to time.
Yeah.
You can find me on nerdsdoitbetter.com. I have articles coming out in Search Engine Journal, PPC Hero. I think another one, maybe Duct Tape Marketing. I can't remember what the next one is. But or on Twitter, Adam Lundquist, Lundquist. It's that nice Swedish last name. And that's about it, unless you're around London.
Sounds good. All right, Adam, appreciate you being on the show today. This was fun. I learned a lot, and I'm learning that nerds do it better. Thankfully, I have some nerds on my team to help me out with this with this stuff. Those of you who are listening to this podcast or watching it, stay tuned next week. I'm going to have another expert like Adam or a previous client on the show to share what they do to make companies and make entrepreneurs work less and make more. And if you want to get a copy of that book right there behind me, Work the System, you can get a free copy at workthesystem.com. You can download it. We've had over 1 million downloads of that book. Or you can buy it on Amazon. Or if you're lucky enough and you want to leave us a comment or review wherever you're watching or listening to this, do that. Take a screenshot and email it to info@workthesystem.com. And we'll be mailing out a free book right there behind me to whoever wins for the week. Otherwise, I will catch you all next week.